All right, let's dive into something pretty incredible today. We're going to explore a hidden history, one that's all about genetic keys, a stolen identity, and a path to reclaiming a heritage that was thought to be lost forever. This is a story that's literally written into our DNA and the planet itself.
So just take a second and imagine that. Your very DNA is the literal key to a planetary power source. But then an enemy shows up. They can't use it, so what do? They try to wipe you out and then steal your name, your identity, to claim a power they could never hold themselves. This is the lost history we're unpacking today, and believe me, the stakes are unbelievably high.
So how does this even work? Well, the core idea here is that certain human family lines have this biological one-to-one connection with the planet's energy grid. Think of it like a high-tech biometric lock. Your specific genetic frequency is the only thing that can open a very specific planetary doorway. It's built right in.
And this table here lays it all out beautifully. You can see how each of the original 12 tribes was seated in a very specific spot on the globe, acting as a living key for their assigned Stargate. You've got Tribe 1 in Arizona for SG1, Tribe 4 in Giza for SG4. But our focus, where we're really going to dig in, is Tribe 2. They were anchored to Jerusalem and Florida, the guardians of Stargate 2.
Okay, so let's zoom in on the group we're really here to talk about, the guardians of Stargate 2. This was a Magi Indigo Grail line known as the Mahali Bruea. These were the original key holders for what turned out to be one of the most contested portals on the entire planet.
So, who exactly were the Ma'Bria? Well, for starters, they were the original Hebrew races, a hybrid of the Hebrew and Melchizedek cloisters. Their lineage is ancient, stretching all the way back to the Ma'a of Lemuria in Hawaii and Easter Island. And what's so crucial to understand is that their descendants are still here today. Groups like the Brianya, the black and brown-skinned peoples of Haiti and Bimini, and the Seminole Native Americans of Florida. These were and are the people designated as the biological guardians for Stargate 2.
And that's the whole point, right? Their specific DNA signet codes gave them this unique ability to organically interface with and protect this absolutely critical planetary portal. They didn't need any special technology. Their very biology was the technology.
But, having something that powerful, that sacred, this biological key, well, it's going to attract the wrong kind of attention. It made them a prime target for intruder races who didn't have these organic credentials and wanted the power of the Stargates for themselves. And this right here really breaks down the difference. It's like the difference between having the actual key to a house versus just showing up with a crowbar. The Mahali Bruea had the natural genetic key. The Hyksos invaders, a mix of what the source material calls Anunnaki and Draconian genetics, they didn't. So they couldn't open the door. They had to resort to forced entry with artificial arc technology, and then, to add insult to injury, they stole the identity of the very people they were attacking.
Now, this didn't happen overnight. We're talking about a long, strategic campaign of both physical and spiritual warfare. It started with infiltration about 3,600 years ago and ended 600 years later in this catastrophic takeover that resulted in the genocide of Tribe 2 and the shattering of the very energetic structure of the Stargate they were born to protect.
It was a really devastatingly effective two-pronged attack. Think about it. First, you eliminate the true key holders. Then, you steal their identity, their teachings, their name. You create a whole false history that makes you look like the legitimate guardians. And that false narrative has lasted for thousands of years.
So you hear all that, and it sounds final, doesn't it? Like that's the tragic end of the story. The Guardians are gone, the sacred site is destroyed. It looks like a complete and total loss.
But here's where things get really interesting. Was that it? Did the bloodline, the actual biological key itself, just vanish from the face of the earth after all that?
And the answer, amazingly, is no, not even close. According to the source material, the descendants of the Mahali Bruea are still here, the Brainoa peoples in Haiti and the Caribbean, the Seminole in Florida, and other lines in the Pacific. They survived, often anchored to the very same sacred sites their ancestors were meant to protect.
And this right here, this is the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. The genetic keys for Stargate 2 were never fully erased. They still exist. They're just lying dormant, latent, within the DNA of these surviving descendants.
Okay, so if the descendants are still here and the DNA codes are still in them, what's next? I mean, how do you even begin to reclaim something like that?
How does a whole lineage heal from thousands of years of trauma and identity theft?
Well, the sources point to a very specific mechanism for healing these incredibly deep historical wounds. It's a system of spiritual protocols designed to, in a sense, go back in time energetically to address the very moments the trauma happened.
So this is the roadmap, right? The path forward. It's a three-step process. First, you have to target that specific historical trauma, that Hyksos invasion. Second, you energetically clear the false name-stealer narrative that was forced onto the lineage. And finally, by healing that fragmentation, the connection to their original powerful DNA signet codes can actually be restored.
And that really is the ultimate question, isn't it? This whole story isn't over. It's a story of incredible survival, of a latent power just waiting within a bloodline. It leaves us to wonder, what happens when those keys are finally reclaimed? What does the future look like when it's put back in the hands of its rightful guardian?